Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of What Do You Call It podcast. I'm your host, GB, and today's guest is maybe the tallest guest I've had on the show. He's the heathen Logan Creed, and he's currently on the road at the moment, but he's taking the time to speak to yours truly, and it's much appreciated. So, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm headed to a show now, so that's why I'm on the road.
No, that's good, man. Thank you for squeezing me in your busy schedule.
Oh, no
So,
problem.
hope it's a safe journey as well. So, the name Logan Creed, was that a nod to the characters Wolverine and Sabretooth from the X-Men?
That was, yeah. Growing up, I was a huge comic fan. So, it took a couple of years. I didn't actually start out as Logan Creed. My very first name was Dine when I got into wrestling. And years later, I kind of restarted rethinking the whole deal and rethinking who I wanted to be and who I was.
Mm.
And, I tell people now that, it started as that. That's kind of where the name comes from. And I really feel like I've taken ownership of the name now.
Yeah.
And people don't even consider that unless they're super hardcore, comic fans. And when they finally do put it together, it's really fun to see that reaction when they realize that, oh, wait, this guy's a comic book fan too. Like, so that's pretty cool.
Nothing wrong with that, mate. I'm a massive nerd. Proud of it, so there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's now cool to be a nerd these days. So you were just ahead of the time. So that's pretty good, man. So basically, to rewind the clocks a little bit, just to basically go back to the beginning, before you became a wrestler, what actually got you into wrestling? So you mentioned about comic books, but wrestling, where did you find your love for that?
It started at a very, very young age. As far back as I can remember. I was a wrestling fan, and I remember watching it with my grandparents actually growing up. And so that's kind of back in the NWA days. Where they were huge NWA fans. I didn't really get into the WWF till later in life, but in the South, NWA was what everybody was into and what everybody watched. But yeah, I mean, we're talking 87 to 88. I was probably 3 years old and have memories of watching wrestling even for that far back.
Okay, and who is some of your favorites growing up as you were a fan of the NWA? Would it have been like Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, that's those sort of guys?
I always loved the Road Warriors. I loved Sting. I always liked the over the top characters, and that kind of bleeds over into that comic book, and character love that I have, because these guys, they were superheroes to me.
Yeah.
They were, and I still feel like that today. I think that's what wrestlers are, is we're living, breathing embodiments of superheroes and supervillains. So, I think that's really cool. And I think you see it more now than ever before, that it's kind of taking ownership of that.
And is that what basically is inspired you for your unique look that you have currently?
Yeah, absolutely. I design gear based after some of the comic characters that I have a love for, and face paint, obviously, that goes right back to the Legion of Doom and Sting. But as I got older, I started gaining appreciation for the bigger characters, because I knew I was going to be a big kid. I was a bigger kid than everybody in school. And oddly enough, even being bigger wasn't always a good thing, because I had this weird phobia of it, because I felt like there was something wrong. There was something wrong.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I connected with them. I connected with The Undertaker. I connected with Vader. These big guys, because I knew that's what I didn't know I was going to be a wrestler at the time, but I just knew that that's how I was going to be viewed.
Okay, so that may explain then, as you just mentioned, The Undertaker, your dive, by the way, which on the top, it's just chef's kiss for that one, mate. The way you fight for the air, especially your height, I don't think people generally realize how difficult that must be. I'm not saying it's an easy move anyway in general, but just that extra height. Oh,
no, yeah, I've got to give that back to my athletic background. I was a football player. I was a collegiate wrestler. So, athleticism wise, a lot of guys my size can't move like that.
Mm.
I'm like 280 pounds. I'm 6'10". So that's not a normal everyday thing that you see. And I've been very blessed because I haven't had serious injuries. I haven't had knee
Mm.
problems, which is a tall person issue a lot of times.
Yeah.
But I've been able to stay really healthy through all the years of doing this and continue to perform at a higher level even than I did when I started.
Okay, that's fine. And I'd just like to know, because you've been wrestling for about nearly 10 years now, and
Right.
where is it that you basically began training to become a wrestler? And
It,
actually, just before that, a little bit as well, what made you want to become a wrestler?
well, it was actually when I was in high school, and at that
Mm.
time, that was the peak of the Monday Night Wars. That was the peak of the WWE Raw and WCW Nitro, and
Mm.
that was when wrestling got hot, as as everyone knows.
Yeah.
Uh, and it blew up so big. That's all any of the kids were doing in school and high school. Everybody was running around doing DX chops or Stone Cold Stunners to people
Hmm.
in the hall. Like, it was just insanity.
Got told
Um,
off for that a lot in school.
yeah, so did I. Um, but it grew, and even my friends, it grew into something where, of course, we started doing our own little show,
Hmm.
and people would come watch from school, and all of our friends, and like instead of having a party, we were having parties with a wrestling show in the backyard. And that was when I realized that, man, I would really really like to do this. um, but it kind of took a backseat when about my senior year, when I realized that collegiate sports were going to be on the horizon, and I started kind of thinking about my future. So I didn't really, I kind of put it on the back burner, didn't really think about it a whole lot.
Mm.
And I went to play football for Georgia Southern University, and it was totally burnt out on football after high school. Um, didn't really have the love I thought I had for it when I got there. So I transferred, and when I transferred to East Georgia College, they were starting a wrestling team, and I had wrestled in college, and they saw me in the gym, and they said, "Man, we need a heavyweight.
Mm.
Would you wrestle for us?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I don't know how good I am, but I'll do it." So that's where I started doing the collegiate wrestling, and that led me to a professor who ran a wrestling show on the weekends, just as a hobby. And he saw me. He was like, "Man, you know, you should be in professional wrestling." I was like, "Well, I love professional wrestling, and I've always wanted to try it."
Mm.
And so I found a local place in Swainsboro, Georgia. The name of the company was GPW. It's not around anymore. And some of the guys, Timothy Corsi and Sean Hunter, who were both workers, they kind of started training me. And this is at a time back before social media. MySpace had just been created when this started, so
MySpace.
it wasn't as simple. Yeah, it wasn't as simple as creating a page and then start following people. Like
Mm.
nobody had started using that yet as an outlet.
Yeah.
So I was still showing up to shows when we could find one and trying to get a spot. We were sending VHS tapes to promoters, hoping that they would even watch it. So it was a different time, and I spent years, I mean 6-7 years, basically just in the southeast of Georgia, just middle Georgia, working a couple of shows on a little circuit, but
Mm.
not really out or branching out anywhere.
Oh, okay, cool. I've never really actually, this is the first time I've done, I don't know, about 12, 13 episodes and MySpace being mentioned. So, thumbs up for that one. That's quite an interesting direction that you had to take. And obviously, it was quite difficult for you at the time. So, when you did sort of pick up a bit of momentum, what was it that you found kept you going to be a wrestler? Sort of what are some of your favorite places that you would wrestle in as well? And just some of your favorite opponents, just sort of early on in your career.
Well, like I said early on, it was just a passion and love for it.
Hmm.
And I actually ended up taking a probably like a 4-year hiatus right in the middle of it all. And just I didn't feel like I was going anywhere. I didn't know how to. I hadn't ever been trained or met anyone that could help me, branch out from what I was doing.
Mm.
And it just so happened, and I guess it was just one of those destiny type things, as fate would have it. Uh, a local guy in my hometown started running a show and knew me and knew I had wrestled. He's like, man, you know everybody in town, come back and wrestle. And so I did. And I think 2 shows into this, Luke Gallows, they had him come in for a show. And I met him. He saw me. He started kind of questioning about me and who I was. And he actually was the guy who taught me how to network outside of just the Southeast. And he helped me and got me some bookings in some other states and kind of started getting my name to some other people. And slowly but surely from there, it really started to pick up. And once that happened and other promotions got wind of me and how big I was, it really started picking up and taking off. And that was probably around 2012.
No, it's good. I didn't realize that Luke Gallows was sort of that important to you as well. So that's really cool of him to do that for you.
Definitely. And he was my first, I guess you would say the name opponent, somebody that was known everywhere. And so that was a lot of fun. And that was a big moment for me as far as motivation goes, because that let me know that I can do this and I can do this and be something in this business.
Because I think as well, like with sort of big men, it's not to say that, they're non-existent, but, it's a lot of smaller guys on TV these days. So for someone that is quite big and can work and sort of is agile like you are, I think, that might make you stand out a bit more, which is good.
I think
that's just a bit of praise there, not brown nosing. Generally mean it. Before we do talk about you joining MLW, and I'd like to know, because you're actually someone that was offered a WWE tryout, but you opted out. And to hear about that these days, probably unheard of in a way. I'd like to know, what was your reason for doing this? Because we don't usually hear a lot of wrestlers doing that. And you turned it down basically for MLW, which we will be talking about in a moment. But just want to discuss that quickly.
Yeah, no, it's I did go to some people for advice. Once again, go back to Gallows. He was very helpful and a beneficial part of that tryout coming to me. And he encouraged me to go. And then on the other spectrum, I had people who had been around and knew things and how they work. They were kind of telling me, hey, maybe you shouldn't go down yet. And it turned out I actually got to talk to somebody within the WWE that was in management. And they kind of said, hey, you don't really have that name value yet. You're not, you're known down there, but you're not known everywhere else. You come down, you're probably not going to get a huge offer right out of the gates. And, I have a family that would be moving with me. I would not leave them here. So I had to start looking at the financial aspect of the decision I made and what was going to be best for my family and not just me. As a single person, I think there's zero doubt that I would have went and did the tryout. But, with them in mind and consideration and them being more important than even my ambition and goals, I knew that I needed to put them first. And so I made the decision from that to go ahead and go with the MLW and help build that name. And then, back into things, we'll see what happens.
No, I respect that. And that actually does remind me, well, it's quite similar to AJ Styles back in 2001, 2002, when he was offered a contract, but essentially he had to look out for his family. So for you to make that decision, I absolutely respect that. And you still get to do what you love. And because MLW has such a strong following and produces such good wrestling, basically, I think you may have answered it, but I just want to know, how did you join MLW? So you mentioned about, why you sort of chose MLW over WWE, but how did you get the opportunity to join MLW?
It come out of nowhere. There was a time right around, I guess it was 2018, December 2018.
Yeah,
I kind of made the decision that I was going to give it another year until my birthday. just see what happened.
Yeah.
And so I really started pushing out emails. I started pushing out my content and a resume to any promotion I could find an email address for. I heard back probably from 3 out of the hundreds I sent. And even the 3 that I got were a no. So I was like, okay. But I guess it was June of 2019 that I got a text message randomly one morning in the gym. It was before a show. And it was George Carroll Jr., who is an agent with MLW. And he texted me. I didn't recognize the number. And he said, hey, are you currently talking to anybody about a contract? And I said, no. And he said, well, would you be interested in signing with MLW? Well, I thought it was a joke. I figured it was somebody was clowning me.
Yeah,
and,
like a rib or something.
Somebody was trying to rib me. And so I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. He said, well, can I give you a call? Well, he calls and he starts talking. And seconds into him calling me, I realized, I was like, okay, this is for real. And he got me in touch with Court and the office there at MLW. And we started discussing, contract and things like that. And like I said, the WWE trial actually come at the same time that all this was happening. So it was kind of a crazy few months, but I ended up signing the contract on August 22nd on my birthday when I had put the deadline for doing something or quitting. So
can't make it up.
There was another writing on the wall destiny type deal because it was like, yep, you're not done. So
that's it, man. What a birthday present that was. Do you reckon it was maybe as well? Like, which the irony is because WWE is saying, you need a bit more name value, but MLW, probably may have got wind of it and then thought, okay, maybe WWE wants him, but it's just how it works.
I think it was the reverse. I think MLW started talking and then they got wind of it because WWE wants to anybody that anybody's interested in, they want them.
Yeah.
Because they figure if they want them, there's a reason, which is fine. That's the way business works. This is a business, and if a company's looking for a good employee and another one finds out about it and they can use them, they're probably going to try to get them. And if they've got more money to give them, they're going to take them. So I mean, it's just that's the way the business works, and I'll take it. I was in a situation where I was ready to do something, but like we said, it was more beneficial, and I'm happy. I think it's an absolute right decision with everything that happened in 2020. Who's to say I went to the WWE and then COVID happens. I may have got released. We don't know. We'll never know, but it doesn't matter because the decision was made, and I've been super happy with MLW. I've been super happy with the way they used me, with the things they've created and done with me. And I think as soon as we get back rolling in July the 11th, I think it's going to just continue to grow. Because there's big things on the horizon. There's a lot of behind the scenes that hasn't been put out to public yet, but it will be. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
It was basically my first introduction to you, Rob. So that's sort of basically how I discovered who you were as a talent, and you would make your debut, but less than 2 years ago, and it was with Dynasty as Krugger. I just want to know what was that like for you, and especially what was MJF like? Oh, we've just lost him. I will keep recording. I think he's going to come back, and he's coming back. Hello. Yeah, all good, man. Keep this one recording. All good, man. I think I was just basically asking about your debut in MLW. Basically, I just want to know what was that like for you, and what's it like being part of the Dynasty, really, and MJF as well. Is he actually that? Is he much of a dick?
It was great to walk in and be put into a position with absolute best spot I could ask for, being with the Dynasty. And what a great group of talent you got in Hammerstone and Holiday and MJF at the time.
Yeah.
So MJF, he he is everything that a professional wrestler should be. You know, he lives that. He is who he is. There's nothing different happening in front of the camera that's not happening behind the camera. Professional. He's young, so he hasn't even reached his stride yet or his prime, and he's already leaps and bounds ahead of most of the talent out there. And Holiday and Hammerstone, man, they don't get the credit they deserve. I don't think. I think MJF at the time was probably kind of pulling away from some of the attention they could have gotten. But I think now that they're out on their own, and you already see it,
starting to shine a lot more on their own.
Hammerstone is a superstar. There's no denying that. He's got the look. He's got the work ethic. He's got the
I like his work. He's good.
Yeah, it's and Holiday's the same way. And the best part is they're their own individuals, but they fit so well together as a group. And I think that's great.
I should be having Holiday in this podcast hopefully next week. Fingers crossed. Cheap plug there. So you broke out from the group, and I think this is where I really gravitate towards you as well. Just want to know, what is it like? If you could tell me about the psychology of working as a big man, because I think I just basically know the importance of working for someone your size. What is it that that you should be doing, and basically what do you feel you should do to separate yourself from other people? Because I feel like I think the reason I mention this is because I've been listening to Undertaker lately, and he's talking about like how he has to pull Big Show aside sometimes and tell him how to really work and sort of as a big man. So I just want to know the psychology of working with someone, basically working as someone as your height. Sort of, if you can go a bit detail into that. What is it that
I study a lot of Undertaker for that reason, because I compare myself to him a lot in the way I work. And always, Undertaker had a really good ability of, they call it selling on the run, but he's not always on his back, but he moves around the ring a lot, and he uses the full extent of the ring to work, especially when he's taking stuff from guys. It's not always a bump for him. It's take it and move, and take it and move, and there's constantly coming after him. I think that's one thing as a big guy, that psychology wise, that's, you have to do that. You're not just going to be on your back or on your ground. I've always heard the term from other big guys in the business when I was coming up. You're too big to be on your back, because nobody can see the money. You've got dollar signs all over you, but if you're laying on your back, nobody can see you. And the point of that is I'm a spectacle, and when I'm standing up, right, the whole crowd and everybody looking.
Everyone's turning their head straight away.
They're in awe. And it's no different than walking in a gas station or a store or a restaurant. When I walk into these places, I watch the entire place stop and stare at me as I walk by. So that's what it is. That's what being a big man is being big, being as big as you possibly can, and doing things differently than everyone else. Even, and you're still doing the stuff, and you're still doing the moves, but you're making it bigger. Everything bigger.
Oh, okay. And just to sort of wrap this up as well, I'd just like to know, what is it about MLW that makes it special to you? And if you had to tell someone that isn't quite sure what brand to watch of wrestling companies and what shows to watch, basically, how would you sell MLW to them, and how would you sell yourself as well to them?
MLW is I really, really think it's got a little bit of everything for the wrestling fan. You've got lucha guys, you've got former UFC fighters, you've got wrestlers, you've got brawlers. They're telling stories, which is one of the things I grew up on that I loved about the NWA. It's less entertainment and more that old school style feel of wrestling. But like I said, it's just such a great mixture of everything. You look at the thing that the Alexander Hammerstone and Mads Krugger that we've been doing for the last few months. There's so much storytelling going on there. It's just been promo after promo after promo for me, and you haven't seen me back in the ring. A lot of people would say, when are we going to see him wrestle? Well, when you do, it'll mean so much more
Yeah.
than just seeing me out there every week, beating the hell out of somebody. They play the long game, and so many times you don't see that anymore. They rush through storylines on these weekly shows, and you barely have time to sink your teeth into anything before it's over. And maybe that everything's different. Everybody likes a different. Everybody's got their own cup of tea. You know what I mean? But for the fans, the hardcore fans that follow MLW, the new fans that come on, I always seem to see that that's the one thing they appreciate is those long storytelling and being able to really get behind what's happening and waiting to see what's going to happen. What's the conclusion going to be? And when you watch a TV show, it's the same thing. It doesn't end 2 episodes into season 1. There's 6 or 7 or 8 or, however many seasons. And one thing may end, but it's just carrying over, and that character's story is building on top of the story before it.
Yeah.
I think that's the key that a lot of times wrestling misses now is they're not building from one story to the next. They're just doing one thing, it stops, and then something else is happening. And so there's no character development. There's no growth within a person. And if there's no growth there, a fan can't get behind them.
I absolutely agree with that. In terms of long-term storytelling, it's become a lost art, and it's quite sad in ways. So I think that's why a lot of fans do really like MLW, building up to things as well. It's not just cramming in a year's worth of storylines into 3 weeks and that's it. Like I think you mentioned TV shows is a really good way of putting it, because we've all got a series that we'll watch at the moment. What series you watching, by the way? Just out of curiosity, if you're watching any.
So, to be honest with you, I haven't been home in 2.5 weeks. I have watched so little TV. Like, yes, man, when everything started opening back up here, it really started opening back up here. People are in a frenzy to get out of their house, which, of course, I figured that would happen. Is it too soon? Is it not too soon? I'm not a scientist or a doctor, so I don't know. I have been very blessed, and I haven't been sick, and I never got COVID. I've been tested more times than I ever care to try to count. I probably don't have much of a brain left after sticking Q-tips up my nose every week. But I've been very blessed not to get sick. I know people who have. I've known people who have passed away, and that's it's tough. But I'm really happy that these vaccines are rolling out. I'm really happy to see people excited to get out. I mean, I haven't been to a show probably in the last 3 weeks that there was less than 300 people at. And I mean, shows that, maybe drew 100, 150, at times. And now they're just packing them out to the best of their ability. And whatever the restriction may be, they're putting that many in there and selling out. And it's great because people are ready to see wrestling again. They've missed it. They missed being in front of it. They're tired of watching it on TV. So it could have been a huge blessing in disguise for the entire business, because now people are hungry to see it live again.
Yeah, everyone's got that appetite. We don't have the luxury of watching wrestling yet here. I think we have to wait till June, July. So basically what's happening over there, what your experience, we'll be able to experience that in just another few months. So I can't wait myself. So that's why I started the podcast and have basically been able to talk to you. So in a way, it's been a blessing for me in disguise as well. But I do want to sort of bounce back from this and go back to normality. So to wrap this up, I did see you recently wrestled Big Cass, Cass Double XL, who made his return to pro wrestling, had his issues, but seems to be back at bringing his A game again, which I'm happy for. I just want to know, what's that like for you to be a part of it?
You talk about him bouncing back, man. I didn't know him at the time. I didn't know when he was going through his issues. But I will say this, and for whoever listens to this, he has found his passion and love for this business. It was such a great experience all the way around the match, talking with him, being around him. He's really found his love, I think, for wrestling, and that's great to see. I love to see that. I think he's having fun, and I think that's may have been part of the problem before. It was, he wasn't really having fun when he was there. And I can, I've never been there, but I could say, if I had walked into the WWE, never had an independent match in my life, I couldn't imagine that pressure. I threw up walking out in front of 20 people at this flea market when I started. So just imagine walking out in front of 20,000 your first night ever.
That pressure.
Yeah, that's insane to even try to comprehend for me. So I think he's having fun. I see it. I see he's having fun. I had a blast working with him. The match was great. And so, I'm just super happy to see a guy who, I look up to as another big guy. And I don't meet many guys that I look up to. So that is something in itself. But, it's good to see that. And I wish him all the best. And I can't wait to see what the future holds for him, because he's an amazing talent and an amazing person.
Who knows, maybe get to see two as a tag team down the road. But that'd be pretty cool. Split Enzo, man. I like Enzo on his own, like just being like a top heel. And I think with Kaz's story, I think he'd be a great babyface. But that's good for them. And to officially wrap this up, don't want to keep your eyes off the road at the moment. But no, thank you for coming on What You Call It podcast. It means a lot. I'm a fan of yours, so this is cool. So 2 questions. What's been your favourite match of your career so far? And who would you like to face if you had the chance, past or present? Sorry, past and present, doesn't matter. Not the best of words.
My favorite match was probably with Austin Theory. And that was just because I attribute so much to him at a time when I was right before everything happened with MLW. I was able to travel with him and train with him. And man, you want to talk about a kid that gets it and is just years beyond what
is he in his mid-20s? Yeah, he is so good.
Oh yeah, he's 22, man. And I'm telling you, we would drive down the road for 6-7 hours at a time going to these shows and listen to him talk about matches and watching matches with him. I was blown away. I always wrestling. I taught him some business things, and he taught me wrestling. So he's such a great talent. Yeah, exactly. He's a talent, and man, you talk about he's going to be WWE World Champion one day. He's going to headline WrestleMania one day, and I know this because he told me this. And there's nothing he doesn't do that he says. If he says it, it's going to happen. So I'm telling you now, we can look back on this in a few years and say, yeah, well, Logan was right, because that's what he's going to do. He doesn't take no for an answer. He's so committed and driven and motivated, and he needs no outside help with that. It's all internal.
He is great.
Yep, and so he's going to be amazing. But that match meant so much to me because we went out as friends and just totally killed it. If you ever get a chance to look it up, it's on IWTV, Independent Wrestling TV, and with the Southern Honor Wrestling. I think it was Winter Coming was the name of the show. But yeah, definitely one worth watching. And you can really look at that match and fast forward to us talking today and see the growth that I've gone through in just a short 2 years. So it's definitely worth checking out. And then as far as a dream match, it'd have to be Undertaker, man. That's of course you want to work the guy you idolize. So yeah, it would definitely be Taker. And if somebody passed away, I always say Mike Awesome or
oh mate, he was so underrated. Oh, Mike Awesome, man, I loved him. I still go back and watch his stuff, and I sort of smile but get a bit sad.
Trust me, if you ever see me do some of his stuff, there's a reason why, because I studied it too. And yeah, I've been compared to him before, especially I think Court was really big on Mike Awesome, and I think he sees some Mike Awesome in me as well. I personally would say that's a massive compliment. Absolutely.
Massive compliment, just because I love Mike Awesome, man. Where can fans find you on social media?
You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat. I think I have a TikTok, but I've never used it. It's all at the Logan Creed. I haven't really figured out that, but I don't really get into everything. I'm kind of older, bro, so I'm catching up on this stuff. Um, but at the Logan Creed on any social media outlet, Instagram as well. And like I said, you can check me out on IWTV, Southern Honor Wrestling, Action Wrestling, New South Wrestling. We just had a huge Mania weekend where IWTV was down and had all kinds of content that they put out. So that IWTV is a great outlet for a wrestling fan. If you enjoy independent wrestling and you're not signed up, you should be.
Okay, cool, man. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming on. And who are you wrestling tonight, by the way? I did forget to ask when you told me.
This is great. You talk about you talk about where you come from in a career, where you're going, and looking back, would you ever imagine a match that was going to happen? This is one that you would never imagine. I'm actually working Bull Buchanan's son, Ben Buchanan.
Man, I didn't know he had a son.
Well, hey, his kid he's gonna be a blue chipper too, man. He's big. He's almost as tall as I am. He was a outstanding high school wrestler, won state championship. He's now in college wrestling, so he has to take that time off every year to wrestle in college. But yeah, he's following his dad's footsteps and probably gonna climb over that mountain as well. And I think his dad would agree.
Oh man, can you not just have a match with his dad as well? Just get him to come out like right to censor as well.
I actually have years ago.
Have you wrestled him? Oh
yeah,
man, what was that? Sorry, right. I know I was supposed to wrap up, but just quickly, if you could tell me, I have to know.
No, it was awesome, and that was early on when I first come back, and so I was still so green, but man, he was such a pro and carried me through the match, and we had a really good match. So it's kind of cool now to know I've wrestled dad, now I'm going to wrestle his son. So.
Oh man! So I'm just like I don't know if you've ever watched OSW review. Like they got their boys stable, and Bull Buchanan is in there. So like I'm sort of just geeking off a little bit. But thank you for coming on, man. Got a smile on my face. I hope you get there safe as well. And if you ever come to the UK, hopefully we can do this in person. But for now, stay safe, mate. And there'll be more episodes of What You Call It coming out soon. Take care, everyone.